Welcome to the Future of Hiring series. Candid insights from founders, talent leaders, and recruiters about duct-taped hiring, resume carpet bombs, hiring magic wand, and more. In today's interview, we have some amazing discussions from Aaquib Hussain, founding partner at Freeflow Ventures.
Kind of give it a core budget and pick up to 85% of that cost of budget on ourselves.
Okay.
So from the process of creating job descriptions to closing on a particular role to providing flexible rollovers of candidates basis efficiency and cost parameters would be picked up by us, linked to a certain degree of performance KPIs and closures of certain objectives.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, we would charge the startup a premium exit rather than charging them an equity. So I won't charge Abhijit the equity equivalent of the 85% that I'm picking up. Rather, I'll pick up a 130% premium, given the fact that because of our interventions, their cash flow remained protected, their equity table did not get disrupted for the wrong reasons. And most importantly, by the time we left the staffing role in that company, they had a stabler outcome to actually cater with.
Right.
So these are the three buckets, if I can put it that.
All right. So sounds slightly different from what we have heard so far. And again, because it's a slightly different operational model that you folks have. So
Right.
I think you can answer the following questions,
Mm-hmm.
both from the perspective of your internal team on your role, as well
Mm-hmm.
as the how you help the founders, the startups, vis-a-vis recruitment, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my first question is around hiring frustrations. I'm pretty sure
Right.
you would have had plenty around your team hiring as well as around your startup founders, which you mentioned a few of them.
Right.
And there are a huge laundry list of issues, starting from the resume carpet bombing to the interview scheduling conflicts and whatnot. You mentioned a couple of technologies that do help, but
Right.
so far, what do you think as the top 2 or 3 hiring frustrations which your team has faced and which your
Mhm.
founders typically face?
So internally speaking, the diversity of the candidature that you would ideally want to look at, especially when you know that you are catering to a universe that does first of a kind systems or first of a kind innovations.
Mhm.
So if you're really wanting to bank on people who need to join these teams, there needs to be a sense of quantifying the abstract in that
Right.
individual. And whatever tools we might deploy, whether it is in video interview, which is AI backed, or a custom filter, which is being done during the candidate screening process, what we miss out on is the ability of that unit individual to kind of give us a quantified reference of how much is enough,
Interesting.
or what kind of a challenge is it really going to take them, what is it that they're ready to take head on in this digital first culture that we are trying to kind of emphasize upon. There's also been one of these challenges on the parameters, especially the ones who are remote workers, who are in centers offshore or onshore, who want to actually have a sense of collaboration, who want to have a sense of community with their co-workers and peers and so on and so forth. That does not necessarily come very naturally.
Mm-hmm.
In the process. So the whole the creativity aspect, or the ability to contribute to a real stuck situation, if I can call it that, a situation which needs to be thought through in a resource constrained manner. That is something that's very difficult to quantify, extract, engage upon, and which is condition precedent or condition subsequent to the fact that you do not have a big denominator of talent being available to you, which is very diversified.
Okay.
If you write a certain kind of a JD, the JD does not necessarily reflect the true expectations of the role anymore. It cannot be qualified within the X finite number of words that you have to kind of make that happen. So that's one challenge. The hedging challenge, if I can call it that. The other bit is because there are a mix of hiring for organizations and internally in two manners, dynamic as well as payroll. the time to hire becomes very, very significant. In an scenarios wherein we are doing it for external organizations, the time to hire is a parameter of your own exit. So my business model is dependent on how fast do I do that, and how efficiently do I do that in essence of the fact that I don't have to roll over candidates.
Right.
So can I kind of reduce the hiring cost degree that the per candidate hiring cost drops significantly compared to the traditional recruitment methods, because that would allow me the marginal that I really want to take at the end of the day. And the third would be a little more internal on how you onboard and retain, because the streamlining of remote work or the streamlining of work for a different IP, which you are venture building for right now, or you're a studio on right now, is very different from doing it for your own self. So you have to define internal portals and subsectional HRMS almost to a certain degree, which allows for diversity, which allows for some grade of global freelancing, which allows for a degree of them feeling wanted, because working on systems without a human interactability to it kind of infuses that level of am I being excluded from the mainstream of the company's movement? So if the onboarding and retention mechanisms can also be standardized to a degree. So those are the three things that we struggle with across the three verticals. Hedge, time, and inclusivity in onboarding, if I can put in as three verticals.
Yeah, I think that is very succinctly and very, I would say, insightfully summarized. So diversity, the time to hire, and then something around onboarding and retainership, so that you can control the churn as well. So I think all good thoughts. And I know like all of these topics, we can go pretty deep, but let's keep moving forward. So when you hire, both for yourself as well as when you help your startup ventures hire, how do you avoid, like when you're taking care of this bulk load of hiring, how do you take care of the bias, guesswork, and gut feel to avoid both what we call the statistical type 1 and type 2 errors in hiring? That means assume there are 100 resumes flowing in, right? And hiring often being a blend of art and science. A lot of times we rely on our own biases. You did mention diversity is one place where it helps, but in general, how do you avoid these errors so that you are not hiring bad fits and you are also not rejecting or missing out on the good fits, especially in context of, you mentioned AI tools and technologies as well?
So, one, there is an acceptance of the fact that there exists a bias. Sometimes the systems generally do not necessarily account for that. Because when you even build models to kind of work at various stages, whether it be candidate screening, whether it be remote interviewing, whether it is work parameters that you want to set in, or the efficiency and cost aspects that you are chasing. Across all four phases, there are inherent biases that exist. So even if I train a model, it's an individual who is feeding in organizational data points. So irrespective of however much I might want to train it, the false positive and the false negatives kind of show up in both the system and the person scenarios. So the rejection criteria are something that we have worked on a little stronger. The false negative is something that we have been able to minimize as much, because that allows us that global active workforce-based pooling method that we have maintained. It allows us to reject a lot lesser number of people who could turn into stronger performers in specific areas, because the mapping is evolving in nature. The methods that we have utilized for it have primarily involved, obviously, the AI-powered assessments. There are a couple of our own portfolio companies, one of them who we have invested on, the others who we have possibly exited as venture builders from, wherein we've kind of bought a certain grade of subscriptions on gamified assessments, which is not just evaluating technical know-how, but as I said in the previous answer also, some grade of behavioral and cognitive skills also, wherein the reduction of the risk of hiring the wrong fit is kind of taken care of. But as I said, the core focus has been on blind and inclusive screening. We've removed a certain number of identifiers from our process. The gender identifier or the background identifier has essentially been removed from resumes. It almost ensures candidates aren't wrongly filtered out due to unconscious biases, which have either seeped in due to hallucination of the model or of the individual who is eventually going to be operationally responsible to hire. Also, because there is a massive push towards diversity hiring pools nowadays. The idea of maintaining an active, dynamic talent pool allows us to widen the access of who we can pick up from in the long run. So we won't have to go into open mediums to hire for the next role or the next possibility. We can always look back and augment from what we would have already created. So those are two broader blind and inclusive screening models. And then there's a candidate-centric experience structure that we've tried infusing, wherein we're allowing candidates to interview at their own time and replay answers, ensuring some amount of fair cadence and chance of showing their true skills. Because as it is, it's an open book kind of a structure that we want to maintain. There is an allowance to open up a screen that they want to refer to. It's not about the recall, but also about the core implementational ability that they carry. Right. So then timeliness of all of that is not necessarily a rigid checklist, which is not otherwise in the traditional way of the world, having been part of legacy organizations like Google and IBM in the past, and having been a employee there, I know there are certain grades of custom capture potentials that they are actually looking out for, whether it be learning agility, or cognitive ability, or aptitude, and so on and so forth. But that happens because or is driven by rigid checklist. In our case, we've kind of made them diluted to a certain degree. And that allows us to check out on areas which are not necessarily very mainstream. So there is, if I just sum it up in 3 points, there is a hybrid evaluation model, in which there's an AI-driven scoring with some amount of human interviewing for nuanced judgment. No over dependence on either of the filters. There is some amount of continuous validation that keeps happening. So post-hire performance kind of gives us some graded, predicted assessments also. Okay, you need to now take care of the type 1, type 2 errors in a better refined reference.
So we have a feedback loop, right?
Absolutely. And then there's that last grade, which is the most significant, especially when you're hiring for resource-constrained systems like startup. And there is skill-based hiring. So you are moving beyond resumes and you're moving towards skill tests and project-based evaluations, which are reducing the noise in both the errors. Right. Because you can't kind of cater to the noise and then get the right talent. Both of that cannot necessarily happen in a time-bound manner. So,
right. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned, I think skill-based hiring seems to be all the craze. And it has come up in a lot of these discussions with founders, with a lot of talent leaders. So that brings me to the next question, which is like some skills. And you also mentioned your talent pool a lot, which seems an interesting take, how to take care of this particular problem. So some skills are eternally hard to hire for. And some skills are relatively easier where you find thousands of resumes flowing in. And this is idiosyncratic based on the business industry and, of course, what your company does. So for your line of business, for your firm, as well as for your founders, which skills have typically been the most difficult to hire for? And how do you find, I would say, sustainable talent pool that replenishes this skill, like when there is churn?
So, interestingly, tech has not been difficult for a while now, especially post-pandemic. It kind of has become much more broader. People have understood that the static grade of abilities that they kind of talk about on their resumes have to take a bigger push towards doable alternatives. The grayer sustainable talent pools are in areas of sales, are in areas of customer benchmarking, are in areas of predictive product management, and so on and so forth, because those are areas that are now taking shape. more and more, wherein your cost accounting is all being connected back to, are you being able to deploy the right person for the right job at the right time? And person, job, and time are all variables in the startup universe.
Right.
Because the grade of person that you can kind of afford to the time that you can actually infuse them in to the grade of payout that you can promise them are all three different broad verticals. So in a free flow first kind of a ecosystem, the issues that we have essentially seen are or have been on the managerial side of hiring, or on the predictive marketing side of hiring, because of the sheer sharp angleness of this. The talent is not necessarily fitting into traditional hiring or talent models for us in those areas.
Okay.
So for me, the portfolio professionals that we need, the ones who we need to put into fractional roles across companies, have been difficult. Skills have evolved faster than credentials. A coder who possibly became a community growth strategist to us, and so on and so forth. So those grades of people have been a little difficult to find. And in an evolving ecosystem of how technology and product mean to different people, there is a sense of latency or underutilization of talent.
Okay.
So those have been graded set of people that we have not necessarily been able to involve in our workforce. For example, women returning after career breaks, or mid-career professionals who are now looking out for flexible roles, or just not been able to capture the digital exponentiation. So those have been people who have not necessarily been able to even augment from our talent pool IP. That okay, we're consistently sending you out the newer models that we are working with, the newer sub-industries that we are exposing our systems to, but there are still a gray area element of the talent that exists there who are not being able to pull up to that grade. So summarizingly, in a system like ours, or in an ecosystem like ours, there are about 4 broad areas that we have essentially needed a plug-in talent ecosystem rather than a curated curated resume-driven ecosystem, which allows us some elastic scaling. Also the exits that are fundamental to our business model. The retention is being a function of purpose rather than just flexibility over pay. So it has been something that we have seen impact more than pay as a reference point, and some grade of cross venture synergies. So areas that we've not been able to define tech sales as a role on, or predictive product management as a role on, we have gone for a cross pollination reference, wherein something that works in a specific industry can have an analogy being driven almost like a gray area pool that often holds polymaths who can move between startups and problem spaces. So polymath is being the most difficult elemental plate for us. But yeah, if I just push it across multiple pool types, community built talent, fractional experts, some grade of portfolio workers, and returners. These have been the 4 difficult pool types for us. The others are kind of taking shape because of this pool model that we kind of manage.
All right, so that sounds pretty insightful. I'm also keeping a tab on time. I know we are slightly overboard, but is it okay with you? Can we continue for 5 more minutes?
Works.
All right. So these founders initially struggle with a typical phenomenon, which we call as broken duct tape hiring, where there are a dozen browser tabs still juggling Google Sheets, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Slack, phone, resume, PDFs, you name it, just to close one position. And what typically was the noise to signal ratio? By that I mean the number of applications flowing into the final shortlist on an average for your ventures before using these AI and new age technologies, and how is the current noise to signal ratio after adoption of these technologies? Like, what has been the delta?
So I'll just first give you a sense of the 4 layers at which the technology is at play, which will kind of give you a sense of why is there a graded calculation of this noise to signal?
Okay.
And I think this suits up very well for modern conglomerates and corporates also, because that's how they kind of do a bottom up with us nowadays. So a PwC has got back with a particular structure for us for a certain model, which one of our HR tech platforms is taking care of.
All right.
And they've borrowed the whole idea. So the 4 areas are primarily in the AI orchestration while the matching process happens. Venture needs with micro talent pools focused at avoiding misallocation. So that's one area. Then there's this consistent learning elasticity that you want to actually build in. So you have to provide for micro learning, and you have to provide for the ability of the fact that the talent can shift across roles and projects, which used to be very difficult otherwise. And that is where we are also quantifying the impact that the unit individual is being able to quantify for himself and qualify for himself or herself. And then there's this third layer, which is the tokenization, credit-based incentive structure that has been created. So beyond cash, almost offering a certain grade of equity shards or ecosystem credits or recognition loops to keep the pool engaged. Even if they're not on active payrolls right now, they know their chance is almost like a fastest finger first of KBC, wherein the fastest finger first is essentially going to make it to a much more important hot seat very soon. So that's the kind of tokenization that's available. And obviously all of this is possible when there is ecosystem transparency. So there is a core onboarding platform that we have, which is designed using data again, using our code model itself, wherein there's a transition between contribution to output and output to value creation, making even gray area contributors feel very visible and measurable. Okay, I might not be very consistent with my effective projects and products, but my signals are validated insights, replicable patterns, data-backed decisions, clear founder market fit indicators, and so on and so forth. So while we do understand that there is some noise still necessary, because the more we explore, the more we differentiate into newer industries, it's an amplification that has had controlled systems. So we followed the typical 80-20 framework, wherein there is 20% noise that's still tolerated, encouraged, and even systematically designed into brainstorms and cross-venture meetups, especially when we want pollination of talent to happen. Because that is how we control cost, on how we are picking up a risk on a particular startup and not on somebody else. And which is what breeds novelty to us. There's a certain sense of novelty. But because of everything that I just told you across those 4 stages, there's an 80% signal also. Obviously, when I compare it to the corporates, which require a 90 to 95% signal and almost a successful need to suppress noise, we don't necessarily need that much of a permissible noise margin suppression. We actually want some amount of fluid experimentation to happen. Unfortunately, the companies come at a much worse ratio, if I can call it that. They come at a 30-70 almost. So the filters improve. We do cluster, draw ideas. We do classify data. We do want to have a consistent identification of emerging themes. We calibrate talent pools consistently because of our ability to feedback them with newer challenges. And we log noise. We log noise for every project. So a failed assumption or a discarded experiment and so on and so forth essentially feed. So for us, it's a transition between chaos to structured serendipity, if I can call it that. I don't want to get into rigidity at all. Because that will make us lose our exploratory advantage as an ecosystem. But it starts at anywhere in between a 30:70 ratio, and it turns into a 80:20 advantage, if I can put it that way.
So some of the noise is necessary to be built into the system, and I think that's an interesting take.
It's never waste. It's raw material to us. Once filtered, it compounds into an ecosystem level signal. So it might not be a unit model level signal, but it will always give a broader ecosystem to us. What is the next talent pattern that we might be missing out on signal wise, but the noise points towards it. So my line for it would be that noise isn't waste. It's a raw material that once filtered compounds into an ecosystem level signal. So
I know, like we touched upon a lot of topics, like starting with hiring frustrations to how you currently hire. We touched upon the skill gaps paradigm. We talked about duct tape hiring and whatnot. And we can delve deeper into any of these topics offline. But to bring the interview to the closure, we'll ask a very interesting question. Like, suppose if you have a magic wand, so among all of
Hmm.
the hiring frustrations out there and all of the things that you could optimize for, you could just wave the magic wand and make one of the biggest pain point go away. What would that be and why?
So my frustrations start at people who kind of can't cross pollinate or are not polymaths.
All right.
And then that's a difficult thing to aspire to, because obviously not everybody desired to be a founder or a owner of an IP or a core product head and stuff like that. There is a process to that, and the mismatch is, as we discussed also, there are bottlenecks in scaling such a expectation. We are struggling with having smart cross pollinators for sure.
Okay.
And the magic wand has to deliver a sense of fluid talent to problem matching ability, if I can put it that way. If I was Harry Potter and I had to do an anything, this had to happen all with a phrase which would be called hiring without hiring. We would, instead of a lengthy recruitment cycle, we would like to ideally run a 100% plug-in model wherein there's a unified interface where ventures subscribe to skill sets as easily as spinning up cloud servers. The way you can have a public server today on demand, you could actually have a unified interface where ventures are subscribing to skill sets. That would be my wand if I ever had one. And it would ideally be bias-free and potential first assessment rather than being resume first assessment. So skills, cognitive ability, almost having the ability of quantifying creativity. That would allow us to reduce the type 2 errors, and everyone who could add value gets a fair shot. Because then my talent sourcing flows into matching, and matching flows into onboarding, and it all has to feel invisible. So yeah, that's one core way that I look at it. And then the other bit is, which I would want as an outcome of an interface like this, is some grade of sustainable equity. Because if people don't just get jobs and they gain micro equity, reputation credits, or community recognition, they stay and grow with the ecosystem. You do away with that core visible frustration of the fact that this was so much cost and effort to have that person in the first place, and then there's attrition.
Right.
So I want to replace the F of frustration with fluidity, and then the individual becomes a recyclable resource of value, never wasted, always evolving. So that's.
Yeah, I think, by the way, this has been super insightful. And physical book launch would be around January end or February next year. So again, would extend an invite to you and send you share a copy with you. Nothing would go live, of course, without your review. We will share that with you. And yeah, I think there are a couple of other updates, but in interest of time, we will keep it offline. So pleasure having you here, and it was a great discussion. Thank you so much, Aaquib.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Pleasure talking to you, Abhijit. Thank you, Akshat, for organizing this.
Thank you, Akshat.
If you found our efforts useful, please like and share and subscribe for more content. For teams looking to hire smarter, explore our AI interviewer platform at Crelytics.co.